You've seen it everywhere, right? Your social media feed, celebrity interviews. Heck, there are entire aisles in the grocery store dedicated to it. The keto diet has absolutely exploded, and it comes with some huge promises about rapid weight loss and incredible health benefits. But what's the real story here? Is it the miracle it's cracked up to be, or is there a catch? Today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and take a hard look at what the actual science says about this super popular and honestly pretty controversial way of eating. And let's be clear, the stakes are incredibly high. Back in 2016, the World Health Organization reported that over 650 million adults across the globe were classified as obese. 650 million. That number alone shows you why the search for a diet that actually works is so urgent for so many people. So how does keto even work? Well, at its core, it's not really about just cutting calories. It's about something much more fundamental. It's about changing the very fuel your body runs on. It's designed to flip a deep, ancient metabolic switch. The main goal is to push your body into a state called ketosis. See, your body's default fuel is glucose, which you get from carbs. Keto changes the game by slashing your carb intake to less than 50 grams a day. To put that in perspective, that's less than what you'd get from a single plain bagel. When you take away the glucose, your body has to find an alternative, so it starts burning fat for energy and producing these things called ketones. You can think of your body like a really sophisticated hybrid engine. Glucose from carbs, that's the regular, easy-to-burn gasoline. But when you take the gasoline away, the engine has to retool itself on the fly and switch over to its powerful but different backup fuel, in this case fat, which it converts into those ketones. Now, this switch doesn't just happen instantly. Your body actually goes through a few distinct stages over several days. First, it just burns off the energy from your last meal. No big deal. Then it starts using up its stored glucose, which is called glycogen. Once that's gone, it gets a little more serious, entering a fasting state. And finally, with its sugar reserves totally empty, it goes all in and ramps up ketone production to keep everything running, especially your brain. And this is a really profound shift we're talking about. It's happening way down at the cellular level. Every little energy factory inside your cells has to completely change its machinery to run on this new fuel. It's actually an amazing survival mechanism that we evolved to get through times when food was scarce. Okay, so we've got the how, we understand the mechanism, but the big question is, does it work? Let's take a look at the results, because when people pull this off, the initial findings are, well, they're pretty compelling. In that initial window, say the first 6 to 12 months, a bunch of clinical trials have shown some really positive effects. Of course, there's the significant weight loss that gets all the headlines. But it's also things like lower blood pressure, much lower triglycerides, better blood sugar control, and even a boost in HDL, the good cholesterol. And this quote from a major meta-analysis really says it all. When you put keto head-to-head with the old classic, the low-fat diet, keto seems to come out on top, at least in those early rounds. It's these kinds of results that totally fuel the hype. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? This is a huge one. What happens after that initial honeymoon period is over? Well, when researchers start looking at the long-term picture, the story gets a whole lot murkier. This chart right here visualizes that story perfectly. Look at the bar on the left. At 6 months, the keto dieters had lost an average of 3.3 kilograms more than the low-fat dieters. Pretty good. But now look at the bar on the right. By the 1-year mark, that advantage had almost completely disappeared. It was so small, it wasn't even statistically significant anymore. That early edge just seems to fade away. And then you have the other side of the coin, the risks and side effects. A lot of people get the infamous keto flu when they start. But more seriously, some studies suggest long-term risks like fatty liver, kidney stones, and nutrient deficiencies. All of this makes it a really hard diet to stick with, which is why we see such high dropout rates in studies. And let's go back to cholesterol for a second, because it is the perfect example of this diet's complexity. On the one hand, keto does some great things. It lowers triglycerides and raises your good HDL. Awesome. But on the other hand, for a lot of people, it also raises the bad LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol. That's a serious trade-off that could potentially increase your risk for heart disease down the road. So when you try to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, you've got the powerful mechanism, the really impressive short-term results, and these very serious long-term questions. What's the final verdict? Well, the reality is the science on keto is still very much unsettled. This table does a fantastic job of summing it all up. On the left, we have the certainties. We know for a fact it induces ketosis. We know it works for short-term weight loss. But on the right, you see the uncertainties, and that list is long. What is the long-term risk to your heart? Can people actually stick to it? And does it even matter what kind of fat you're eating? These are huge unanswered questions. And you might be wondering, well, why don't we have the answers? It's pretty simple. The kind of research we have is limited. Most of the studies are small, they only last for a short time, and like we said, they have a really hard time keeping people on such a tough diet. We just don't have that gold standard, multi-year data we need to answer these critical questions with confidence. Which brings us right here to the final essential question. The keto diet is clearly a powerful metabolic tool. It's not some magic bullet. And deciding to use it requires a very serious calculation of trade-offs. Is that proven short-term gain worth a potential and still largely unknown long-term health risk? Right now, that's a question the science simply can't answer for you.